one of the best support units released this year. But how should you build their hidden potential? How's it, everybody? Celtic Link here. We're back for another Dokkan battle video. In today's video, we are taking a look at the LR, BROLY, CHEELAI, and LEMO, and figuring out what just might be the best hidden potential for them. After all, they're doing quite a lot, and they really only do one thing well. So let's kind of figure out what that is and how to build around that. So let's start with taking a look at their full info. So first off, let's look at their passive. So on their passive, they are attack and defense 30% per key sphere obtained. They have an additional attack and defense with 10% per key sphere obtained. They have an additional 2 key per key sphere obtained. They give all allies key 2 and 39% with AHL or STR. And they give all allies key 2 and defense 39% with tech or int key spheres. They give an additional 15% attack and defense with a rainbow orb key sphere obtained. Now that cannot stack. That is just one singular time. As long as you get one rainbow orb with them, they get that 15%. And then you'll get attack or defense depending on which type of orb you grab. They also have an additional attack 39% when performed a super attack. They launch an additional super attack if there's a movie bosses or super bosses ally. They launch an additional super attack, and they give super bosses category allies damage reduction 10% when key is 24. Now, because of the extra 2 key mechanic and the fact that you're almost always going for 12 key for 7 orbs, you are getting that 24 key, right? So with that, they have a high chance of evading enemies' attack, and if you get 7 or more key spheres, they guarantee evade attack. They also randomly change key spheres of a certain type, Fizz excluded, to Fizz key spheres when 60% or less, and they change all key spheres when 39% or less. So this makes them a very, very useful tool of a unit, especially when you consider that they are massively raising their attack and defense for the turn, giving them at least some survivability in case they miss a dodge, right? And then of course on their 12 key, greatly raising and then lowering attack. So this is very useful in fights like Trunks or Gogeta or Kid Buu, where attacks can be lowered. And since it's on their 12 key, that means additional hidden potential can proc that extra super to do that. So that's really, really useful. But the combination of, 2 to 3 supers here plus this means that, right, they can be somewhat alright depending on the amount of orbs they get if you do not get the 7 to at least maybe tank a normal or 2. I wouldn't expect them to be putting up against the hardest supers, right? But at least you have a 50% chance to dodge and at least some survivability. And of course, as long as you can maintain below 60%, which is pretty easy to do with how hard these bosses hit, you will guarantee changing orbs, right? So that begs the question, knowing that this is what they're doing, right? Their main function is support. They are a bit of a nuker, but I mean, there aren't too much in the way of stats to back that up compared to other nukers, right? So when we look at the hidden potential system, they are a Fizz type. And so as a Fizz type, that means, if I get down, right? As a Fizz type, that means if you were to invest fully in something, right, additional attack, you get a maximum of 20 additional attack, which means 40% additional attack with a 50% chance to launch an additional super. If you invest in something else, at best they can get 15%, which translates to 30% on critical hit, or 15, which is 15% on dodge, right? Dodge does not double up like others. So the question is, what should you go for? As a nuker, the general rule is you want to go crit. You want that nuke attack to be hitting hard. The thing is, relative to what they're doing, they're more often than not getting around 7 to 9 key spheres and never much more, just because of, I mean, how they typically work and the orb changes around them. I've run them multitude of times, and that's about the average I'm seeing. So critical hit really isn't going to do much for them. And consider the fact that you're running them on a team like Rose or BROLY, where BROLY, or possibly Cellmax in the future, is going to be your main damage dealer. Critical hit isn't doing much for them in that regard then. Right? But then again, they also have guaranteed dodge. So you don't really need dodge. either. So it leaves the obvious choice, right? Additional attack should be the priority, and as we said, as a Fizz type, you can get a maximum of 20 and 40%. Now 20 is not including hidden potential skill orbs, right? If you attach an extra, 5 and 5 on the silver, and on the gold, you're talking about an extra 30%, which is a 60% chance to do an additional with a 50% chance to do a super. So honestly, that is probably the better way to go for him. Simply because, one, it gives you extra supers, which gives you extra defense and survivability on the off chance you don't dodge, and two, for events that can be attack lower, that's, the extra supers being dealt is very helpful. So you do want to take advantage of that. So that leaves the question, well, what do you do? What do we do if they don't dodge? Well, one option you could note is that they do have other orb changers. So if you know you're going to bring other orb changers on the team, like when you think super bosses, right? For, let's say you're running Broly's variant, right? You have super bosses. So you have characters like Goku Black, you have the U2 Trio who all change orbs, you have STR Hit, you have plenty of other characters that all change rainbow orbs on them. Thinking on to, like, outside of that, on his transformation boost, Gogeta Blue, even, who works really well on the team, changes rainbow orbs, which can help these guys get to that 7 key spheres. And I can tell you right now, right, having orb changers on the team is make or break for this unit. You cannot run them without those orb changers, so that pretty much guarantees you can get the evasion that you need. So it makes the evasion kind of useless. As I said before, though, crit isn't doing much for them. So honestly, full, in my opinion, right, full additionals, and then go whichever you feel like you being more comfortable with. Right? Dump the rest into evasion if you want that extra chance in case you might miss, or dump the rest into critical hit if you want to try to make them deal an attack. But, either way, neither one is going to be doing much else for them, especially considering, right, at best you're going to get 11 dodge out of this, which is only an extra 11%, unless you go full dodge, which, again, with a unit that has the ability to guarantee dodge, you're kind of wasting potential at that point. So adds, and then sub evasion or sub crit, whichever you feel like you would want most out of them. It's really up to personal opinion on those two. You could try to go with type attack boost or type defense boost, but I don't really think that those would help, as they only specifically apply to when they have type advantage. And again, with a unit that's guaranteed dodge anyways, it's really not going to help. But I mean, there's only 2 choices in that anyways when you're talking about your skill orbs. So that is my recommendation. So guys, that is it for the video. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And in the comments down below, let us know, what did you go with your hidden potential for the Broly Chio? I actually went full additionals and sub dodge, but I'm curious what you guys went. Let us know in the comments down below. Otherwise, guys, as always, thanks for watching, and aloha.